I'm sorry I can't help you. I'm too close to the situation to provide unbiased counsel. You need someone who's more distant from the circumstances. A sign at a pharmacy counter reads something like this: "Out of respect for the privacy of our patients, please keep back some distance while patient counseling is in progress." Driver advice is given: always maintain a safe distance between you and the vehicle in front of you. In many ways, distance is equated with safety. Safety concerns might just express or might explain the remark that Matthew makes in his gospel about the crucifixion scene outside of Jerusalem. Matthew records, "There were also many women there looking on from a distance." The mob with its clubs and swords had already gotten too close for comfort for the sake of the disciples that Thursday evening in Gethsemane. The gospel writer records that all of them fled. But they note that Peter did follow the mob to the chief priest's house at a distance. A concern for personal safety kept the 12 at that distance. They didn't want to be caught. They didn't want to suffer the same thing that was happening to their master at this time. Even though they'd all sworn loyalty to the end, they'd never leave their master. And yet, now there was that distance. Issues of comfort also keep many people at a distance, don't they? You know what it feels like when somebody gets kind of into your personal space? When they're talking to you and they're only about 6 inches away, you tend to back up a little bit more and a little more. When a teenager broke a valued possession belonging to the father of one of his friends, he didn't go back to that friend's house for years. Didn't want to face the father. He knew what had happened. Even in church, some people find sitting in the front pews a little too close for comfort. Maybe that's why, in a prophetic way, Psalm 88 holds another reason why the women at the scene of the crucifixion kept their distance. Psalm 88 says, "You have caused my companions to shun me. You have made me a horror to them." Those were forward-looking words that would describe Jesus. Because who but the most twisted person would enjoy being there, close at the cross, when a friend is being horribly tortured? Who would feel comfortable watching their teacher stripped naked die cruelly right before their eyes? See, those two issues, comfort and safety, come into play on Good Friday to explain the matter of distance. Once after Jesus instructed his disciples where they could find a catch of fish, he said, "Just put your nets down over there," and they did, and they caught so many fish. Peter was struck by that, and Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, depart from me, for I am a sinful man." Isn't it that which always puts distance between us and others, the matter of sin? How quickly would you rush to the hospital bed of a friend whom your drunk driving nearly killed? How speedily would you return to the home of a family with a toddler who was injured because you as a babysitter weren't paying any attention? What makes us keep our distance is our discomfort with the part that we've played in the tragedy. And that's what caused people to keep their distance from the cross too. Jesus was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities, Isaiah would write. See, the crucifixion really exposes that lie that we like to think of that, that little sin, that isn't so bad. So I told a little white lie. It's not like I murdered anybody or anything. And yet, when we see Jesus on the cross, we realize that every sin we've ever committed has put him there. We've been exposed there. See, even lies are symptoms of the sinner's need to hide from the truth. The drunk husband sneaked up the stairs quietly. He looked in the bathroom mirror and he bandaged all the bumps and bruises that he received from a fight at the bar earlier that night. Then he proceeded to climb into bed, smiling, thinking he thought he'd pulled one over on his wife. Morning came, his eyes opened up. There stood his wife. "You were drunk last night, weren't you?" "No, honey." "Well, if you weren't, then why did you put all the Band-Aids on the bathroom mirror?" It's this ongoing denial of our sins out of fear that separates us from God. Jesus died for all people. He died for all sins, and yet some continue to watch from a distance. They don't want to get too close to Jesus because they know, deep down, they know who should be nailed to that tree instead. Jesus understands our reluctance to draw near to his Father. He understands the ironic emptiness that this creates within us. Because even though we sometimes maintain this distance for our own safety and comfort, we don't want to get too close to God. We hate having to experience that dreadful gulf that separates us from what our hearts really want most, a close fellowship with our Creator. So there's a real problem, isn't there? Kind of a catch-22. We'd like to be closer to our Creator, but we know what it is that keeps us separate, and it's our doing. The kind of fellowship we yearn for is that like Adam and Eve had in the garden, walking with God in the cool of the garden, walking through paradise with Him. We wish something could be done to lessen the distance, but we find ourselves unable to bridge the gulf.